Welcome children to another class of ninth biology. In this video we are going to learn about tissues. Tissues somewhat look like this. From the last chapter we recall that all living organisms are made up of cells. In unicellular organisms, a single cell performs all basic functions. For example, in amoeba, a single cell carries out movement, intake of food, gaseous exchange and excretion. But in multicellular organisms, there are millions of cells. Most of these cells are specialized to carry out specific functions. Each specialized function is taken up by a different group of cells. Since these cells carry out only a particular function, they do it very efficiently. In human beings, muscle cells contract and relax to cause movement, nerve cells carry messages, blood flows to transport oxygen, food, hormones and waste material and so on. But in plants, vascular tissues conduct food and water from one part of the plant to other part. So multicellular organisms show division of labor. Cells specializing in one function are often grouped together in the body. This means that a particular function is carried out by a cluster of cells at a definite place in the body. This cluster of cells called a tissue. A tissue is arranged and designed so as to give the highest possible efficiency of function. Blood and phloem and muscles are all examples of tissues. Alright, on your screen you can see blood cells, phloem and muscles. These all are examples of tissues. A group of cells that are similar in structure and or work together to achieve a particular function forms a tissue. So let's see more about tissues. Are all plants and animals made of same types of tissues? Let us compare their structure and functions. Do plants and animals have the same structure? Do they perform similar functions? No. There are noticeable differences between two. Like plants are stationary or fixed, they don't move. Since they have to be upright, they have a large quantity of supportive tissue. The supportive tissue generally has dead cells. Animals, on the other hand, move around in search of food, mates and shelter. They consume more energy as compared to plants. Most of the tissues they contain are living. So from this we can understand that plants have dead cells and animals have living cells when it comes to tissues. Okay, you can see different types of tissues on the screen. Another difference between animals and plants is in the pattern of growth. The growth in plants is limited to certain regions, while this is not so in animals. There are some tissues in plants that divide throughout their life. These tissues are localized in certain regions. Based on the dividing capacity of the tissues, various plant tissues can be classified as growing or meristematic tissue and permanent tissue. Cell growth in animals is more uniform. So there is no such demarcation of dividing and non-dividing regions in animals. The structural organization of organs and organ system is far more specialized and localized in complex animals than even in very complex plants. This fundamental difference reflects the different modes of life pursued by these two major groups of organisms, particularly in their different feeding methods. Also, they are differently adapted for a sedentary existence on one hand and active locomotion on the other hand, that is plants and animals, contributing to this difference in organ system design. It is with reference to these complex animal and plant bodies that we will now talk about the concept of tissues in some detail. So let's understand what is a tissue. What is the utility of tissue in multicellular organisms? Okay, let's first understand about plant tissues. And in that we will now first understand about meristematic tissue. You can see a picture of a location of a meristematic tissue in the plant body. So what is a meristematic tissue? The growth of plants occurs only in certain specific regions. This is because the dividing tissue, also known as meristematic tissue, is located only at these points. Depending on the region where they are present, meristematic tissues are classified as apical, lateral, and intercalary. On your screen you can see a picture. You can see the location of meristematic tissue in plant body. See, it has in this the top, the bottom, and the middle. You can see the apical meristem, intercalary meristem, and lateral meristem. On the top you can see the apical meristem, in the middle the intercalary meristem, and at the bottom the lateral meristem. Apical meristem is present at the growing tips of stems and roots and increase the length of the stem and the root. The girth of the stem or root increases due to lateral meristem, that called cambium. Intercalary meristem, seen in some plants, is located near the node. Cells of meristematic tissue are very active. They have dense cytoplasm. They have thin cellulose walls and prominent nuclei. They lack vacuoles. Can we think why they would lack vacuole? We can refer it to the functions of vacuoles in the chapter on cells. Let's understand about permanent tissue. What happens to the cells formed by meristematic tissue? They take up a specific role and lose the ability to divide. As a result, they form a permanent tissue. This process of taking up a permanent shape, size, and a function is called differentiation. Differentiation leads to the development of various types of permanent tissues. Now let's understand about simple permanent tissue. A few layers of cells beneath the epidermis are generally simple permanent tissue. Parenchyma is the most common simple permanent tissue. It consists of relatively unspecialized cells with thin cell walls. They are living cells. They are usually loosely arranged. Thus, large spaces between cells, that called intercellular spaces, are found in this tissue. We can see intercellular spaces. This tissue generally stores food. You can see on the screen how this tissue looks like. You can see on the screen a section of stem. What all things you can see there? There's a cuticle, and when we come down we can see there are epidermis, collenchyma, parenchyma, phloem, xylem, and vascular bundles. So in some situations the simple permanent tissue contains chlorophyll and performs photosynthesis, and then it is called chlorenchyma. In aquatic plants, large air cavities are present in parenchyma to help them float. Such a parenchyma type is called aerenchyma. The flexibility in plants is due to another permanent tissue, collenchyma. It allows bending of various parts of a plant like tendrils and stems of climbers without breaking. It also provides mechanical support. We can find this tissue in leaf stalks below the epidermis. The cells of this tissue are living, elongated, and irregularly thickened at the corners. There is a very little intercellular space. On the screen now you can see a collenchyma. What all parts are there in a collenchyma? You can see the wall thickenings consisted in the collenchyma, then nucleus, vacuole, and cell wall. So in collenchyma you can see, as you see in the screen, wall thickenings, nucleus, vacuole, and cell walls. Now on the screen you can see various types of permanent tissues like the parenchyma, collenchyma, sclerenchyma, transverse section, and longitudinal section. Now let's see what is a sclerenchyma. So as we said, various types of simple tissues are parenchyma, chlorenchyma, sclerenchyma, transverse section, longitudinal section, etc. So let's see about sclerenchyma. Yet another type of permanent tissue is sclerenchyma. It is the tissue which makes the plant hard and stiff. We have seen the husk of a coconut. It is made up of sclerenchymatous tissue. The cells of this tissue are dead. They are long and narrow as the walls are thickened due to lignin. Often these walls are so thick that there is no internal space inside the cell, as you see on the figure. This tissue is present in stems, around vascular bundles, in the veins of leaves, and in the hard covering of seeds and nuts. It provides strength to the plant parts. Okay, let's do an activity. Take a freshly plucked leaves of row, stretch and break it by applying pressure. While breaking it, keep it stretched gently so that some peel or skin projects come out from the cut. Remove this peel and put it in a petri dish filled with water. Add a few drops of safranine. Wait for a couple of minutes and then transfer it onto a slide. Gently place a cover slip over it. Observe under microscope. What you observe? That is the outermost layer of the cells called epidermis. The epidermis is usually made of a single layer of cells. In some plants living in very dry habitats, the epidermis may be thicker since protection against water loss is critical. The entire surface of a plant has an outer covering epidermis. It protects all parts of the plant. You can see epidermal cells and guard cells on the screen. So, the epidermal cells on the aerial parts of the plant often secrete a waxy, water-resistant layer on their outer surface. This aids in protection against loss of water, mechanical injury, and invasion by parasitic fungi. Since it has a protective role to play, cells of epidermal tissue form a continuous layer without intercellular spaces. Most epidermal cells are relatively flat. Often their outer and side walls are thicker than the inner wall. We can observe small pores here and there in the epidermis of the leaf. These pores are called stomata, as you see in the picture. Stomata are enclosed by two kidney-shaped cells called guard cells. See how a guard cell looks like. They are necessary for exchanging gases with the atmosphere. Transpiration, that means loss of water in the form of water vapor, also takes place through stomata. Let's recall which gas is required for photosynthesis. We can learn more about this in the next topic. See you then. Bye-bye.